is NTV.
Thank you, our viewers, for joining us. I'm Karagaba, Baldwins, and we're coming to you live from the Campus International Conference Center. We bring you a discussion, pretty relatable, but also technical and policy related, about water resources management, and the upcoming Water Week that is being organized by the water sector in Uganda. Before going into a depth of discussion for this particular topic, let's have this introduction so that you can understand what we're going to talk about.
All 193 member states of the United Nations General Assembly unanimously agreed to transform our world by the adoption of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in September 2015. The 2030 Agenda is a plan of action for people, the planet and prosperity through 17 Sustainable Development Goals or SDGs and 169 global targets relating to development outcomes and means of implementation for the period 2015 to 2030. The agenda established SDG6, which is to ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all, reflecting the increased attention on water and sanitation issues in the global political agenda. The 2030 agenda lists rising inequalities, natural resource depletion, environmental degradation, and climate change among the greatest challenges of our time. It recognizes that social development and economic prosperity depend on the sustainable management of freshwater resources and ecosystems, and it highlights the integrated nature of SDGs. Uganda's surface and groundwater resources serve a population of over 40 million people that grows at an average of 3.4%, the fourth highest in sub-Saharan Africa. Based on the projected population growth, the total renewable water resource of the country per capita is expected to drop to 1,072 cubic meters per year by 2030, on the brink of the regime of water scarcity, especially in arid and semi-arid regions. The 2016 study by Industry Economics on economic value of water resources and environment in Uganda indicates that 48% of the agricultural sector and 34% of the manufacturing sector respectively depend on water resources. The study further observed that without proper investment in water management and distribution, the gross domestic product could suffer significantly, and insufficient investment in water management will have much more dramatic effects on the specific water-dependent activities in the agricultural, manufacturing and service sector. On this note, NTV, in conjunction with the Ministry of Water and Environment, bring you a customized discussion on the status and future of Uganda's water and environment system in celebration of the upcoming Uganda Water and Environment Week. You're welcome.
And on that note, I just want to welcome you, of course, on our social media platforms on Facebook and Twitter. And we posted there a question starting with you to give a response on this discussion we're going to have in-house. And we've asked, what is your assessment of government's way of managing the water and water resources in Uganda? And there is already a flood of responses. Just before I get into the detailed discussion, Mbangira Moses says that the central government has done it because it released enough funds, but the problem is that with the local government. And Nansu Gahadija, she says that it's not like my opinion shall do a change, so there is no need to explain myself. No, you have a say on this particular matter. Peter Opio lastly says that issues on water and environment should be strongly vested on the locals, communities, decentralized government systems, private sector, and civil society. Thanks. Please continue bringing in your comments, and let's have our country properly dealt with in the realm of all these issues, especially including water and the rest of the environment issues. So in-house, I have a great panel of experts and practitioners in this sector spearheading the environment and water governance of the country. In the middle, I have Florance Grace Adongo, the Director, Water Resources Management, and she's the head of other directorate issues in the Ministry of Water and Environment. Florance, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Good evening, viewers.
Yes. Dr. Calist, nice to meet you. You're the Commissioner of Water Resources Planning and Regulations, Minister of Water and Environment. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, and good evening, viewers.
Yes. So, Florance, we have an exciting week coming. You are concentrating on making sure that there is a promotion of water, environment, and water-related issues, of course, in line with the SDGs. I would wish that we've first get the international perspectives on how the SDGs bring up this particular necessity for us to be very focused on the proper management of our resources, especially water and the environment. And just slightly also comment about SDG6, which requires that we have water, universal water access and sanitation. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Baldi. And good evening, viewers, once again. The aspects of SDG comes from the Sustainable Development Goals, which were agreed upon by all the partner states under the UN, and they are 17 in number. Goal number 6 particularly looks at water and sanitation. However, water and environment resources are interlinked to all the 17 goals in one way or another. Take, for example, goal number 1, which deals with addressing issues of hunger. And there we need to have enough food. And in this event of climate change, we need to add water to our crops, to our trees, in order for them to grow so that we can get food. When you look at goal number 2, 3, 4, you will see water and environment. Ideally, water and environment are key natural resources and are inputs into many production activities. And therefore, if we have to have sustainable development, then we need to balance the economic development, social development with water and environmental management and development. In that way, we shall continuously have inflow of inputs from the environment that will serve our industries, our needs in the different sectors, so that we are able to grow in a more balanced way and sustainable manner, so that we are able to address issues and matters which pertain to our lives now, but also look into the future for other generations to come. So Sustainable Development Goals aims at balancing economic aspects, social aspects with environmental perspective. And for this matter, the Uganda Water and Environment Week comes as a platform where different stakeholders of different backgrounds will come together to discuss, exchange knowledge, share innovations, best practices, and forge together a way forward in which, as Uganda, we can look at balancing what is called the triple line objective, that is the economic, social, and environmental issues, without necessarily compromising the environmental and water matters. Yes.
All right. Pretty well articulated, because that is the global context that brings it into the national focus. So, Dr. Calist, with your expertise, of course, and your role, administrative role as a Commissioner of Water Resources Planning, we need to understand what is being done by the ministry in ensuring that there is proper sustainable water supply to the whole country. Of course, more relatably, the clean water aspect. Because the Water Sector Performance Report 2017-2018 states that the main technology options used, which include deep water boreholes, 44%, shallow wells 24%, protected springs, which is basically just water resources. And it talks about that as of June 2018, the national safe water coverage in rural areas was estimated at 70%, which had not much change with 2017. And there are issues of water production, water for tourism, industrialization, all other aspects. Just a brief on what you're doing.
Okay, thank you very much, Baldwins. Of course, the Ministry of Water and Environment is there to ensure that every Ugandan has access to safe drinking water. And as you rightly said, only 70% of Ugandans have access to safe drinking water. meaning that 30% actually of Ugandans are taking unsafe water. Now, the Constitution of Uganda has a provision which says that every Ugandan has access to should have access to safe drinking water. Ideally, access to safe drinking water is a constitutional right. And of course, the ministry is doing a lot to ensure that this coverage grows, but a number of things are being put in place. Number one, we're ensuring that instead of people lining up on a point water source, a borehole, we now motorize boreholes so that we can use one borehole and serve many Ugandans. We also bring water closer to them. So we are converting hand-pumped boreholes now into pumped boreholes, and we are using solar. Meaning now solar will make the pumping cheaper. You'll get one borehole, instead of the one borehole serving 300 people, one borehole can even serve 2,000 people. Meaning that you are using the same amount of money to serve more people. We are also, government has also come up with a policy of having one water source per village. And that's something we are pursuing right now. We have also come up with a program in urban areas, which is CAP 100, where we want everybody in urban areas to have access to safe water. Sometimes in urban areas, it's not that the water is not available, it's only that people are not accessing it. So we are trying to connect people. You could have also had, for example, National Water advertising and calling people to come in and apply for connections for free as a way of ensuring that Ugandans have access to safe drinking water. But of course, the water that we provide may not necessarily be safe. So we are trying to ensure that we protect the areas where the water comes from. These areas are called catchments. So we're protecting these catchments so that they control the flow of water, and also they filter the water before it reaches where we need it. So quite a lot of work is being done, and we do believe that once we continue like that, then we'll be able to provide safe drinking water to every Ugandan by the year 2030.
Okay, pretty explicit and concise. And Dr. Florance, because we are exciting people to have this week, and we're going to talk about this elaborately in the coming part. But you have money as a ministry, so a person would ask themselves, what investments have you done? The report itself shows you had over 1.770 billion for the water sector itself. I might be wrong, I might be right, but it's from the Water Sector Performance Report 2017-2018. And the overall per capita cost for rural water supplies is 246, differing from the previous one, which was 295,000 shillings. And there's a variation, meaning that water delivery is becoming more expensive. So just what are the investment weight you're putting in order to make sure that water is accessible and that this objective is realized?
Okay, thank you very much. Just as Dr. Calist has said, one of the things that we have moved into is to invest in high-yielding boreholes, where we shall use solar pumps and then reticulate the supply in a village to cover more people instead of drilling boreholes in point sources. And in that way, I think we shall be able to reduce the cost of investment. And at the beginning, most of the high-yielding water sources and the good water sources were developed. Now, as population increases, the issues of climate change comes in, and also other natural causes. We are now moving into certain areas which have got difficulties in getting the water. And therefore, sometimes it will cost much more in order to get water to such places, especially on the cattle corridor, where we have varying amount of water levels. We are also investing now in multipurpose water infrastructure in form of valley dams and valley tanks. Multipurpose in that once we have created a reservoir, that reservoir can be used for one or more uses, so that we are able to serve the population with the different services. For example, if we have a dam, we shall be able to put in fish and do aquaculture, but shall be able to supply water for domestic use in the rural and urban. We shall also be able to use the water for irrigation. And in that way, we shall be able to solve much more problems, or more, we shall be able to serve more people within the same source. We are also investing in risk management issues linked to catchment management and environment protection. you realize that the amount of water recirculating in Uganda is reducing, according to our assessment. From 1995 to current, we have lost about 34%. So that means that
of water,
of renewable surface water, there's a reduction of 34%. It's partly due to climate change, but I would say it's majorly due to environmental degradation. Encroachment on the wetlands, deforestation, poor land management, poor landscaping are all affecting our water resources. So there's a big link between the availability of water resources we have to the coverage of forestry and wetlands in Uganda.
Is that water recoverable? Just 30 seconds.
That water could be recoverable if we restore the environment, because it is amount of water in the globally is the same. The quantity of water globally is the same. What differs is the quality and what quantity is available at what time and at what place. Okay, so by destroying the environment, we are trying to interfere with the water cycle, because you know very well that in primary we talked about transpiration, how plants transpire and allow water to go into the atmosphere, and that water becomes clouds and we get convection or rainfall. Now if you reduce the surface area of the forest, you reduce the surface area of the wetlands, the amount of water vapor going into the environment up in the atmosphere is reduced. And we are also experiencing climate change. So as the temperature increases, that means that the clouds will not be very easy to be able to settle within the cover of Uganda, but be able to move to other places. So in trying to build the forest cover, it's not only protecting the soil, it has a lot of impact on the amount of water that recirculate in the atmosphere within Uganda.
And that builds a very big premise and context for which we need the next week, which is Uganda Water Week.
Yes.
And when we come back after this break, we go into a further detail so that we interest the public to come and be involved. And I guess they will be of influence if they be involved.
Yes.
Thanks, our viewers, for keeping with us. We'll be right back just after this short break. Thanks, our viewers, for joining us. Next week is going to be is designated by the government of Uganda under the Ministry of Water and Environment as Water Week, and of course other stakeholders. And we are having a discussion here specifically focused on the aspect of water and water resources management. And we posted the question and requested for your comments on our social media platforms on Twitter and Facebook. And I can see Hamza Abigaza says, come to Entebbe and see how they are excavating sand from Lake Victoria. Then Janet says, Janet Nabuire says, no, it's not managing it, but it's managing. Okay, this is a bit digressive. What you're saying is not really quite coherent with this question. I think we need more empowerment in that sector. And have you ever passed on burst water pipes which release water freely in Kampala for weeks, even nearer to the offices of water departments? That's John Oribis making a response. And Dr. Calist, perhaps you can comment, but the question I bring to you, and of course in correspondence with what the viewers are saying, let's have a focus on next week, which are very passionate and excited about, both of you, about the Uganda Water Week. What is the relevance of this? It's, of course, I think from Monday. It's from Monday 18th to Friday 22nd. What is it about, and what do you need the public to do?
Okay, thank you very much. Just maybe to put it right, it's the Uganda Water and Environment Week.
Okay.
Our Ministry of Water and Environment, and we are celebrating a whole week where we want to discuss with our various partners issues related to water and environment. And for this week, our theme is on sustainable development goals. We are trying to reflect on how water and environment are going to assist the country to achieve the sustainable development goals by the year 2030. As has already been highlighted by Florence, water touches almost every aspect of life. Oftentimes we don't appreciate it. If you don't have water for drinking, that's when you know how important water is. If you don't have water for bathing, that's when you know how water important is. Sometimes when you go for weddings and parties, we are drinking actually colored water.
Yes.
The beer you drink is actually 96% of beer is water. Only that is colored water, made sweet. Soda, 95% of soda is water. So in everything we do, water touches us. But water is part of the environment. If you don't protect wetlands, then the water will not be there. If you don't protect forests, the water will not be there. So next week, the whole week we are trying to get the general public. We want the private sector who use this water for productive purposes. We want the civil society who are developing water. We want the communities who depend on water. We want the cultural institutions, the religious institutions, every Ugandan to come and join us so that we can reflect on this important resource, which we depend on, but which sometimes we take for granted. So we'll be having a number of dialogues, a number of discussions. We have actually set up high-level people representing different stakeholders. We'll be dialoguing on different aspects. One of them, for example, we want to see how does water contribute to food security, to energy security, and how is water related to environmental protection. We'll also be looking at issues of water and society, water and environment and society. How does water and environment contribute to society, but what should society do as stewards of this resource? Again, for that discussion, we'll be having some bishops, we'll be having the cultural institutions, we'll be having the civil society, the private sector dialoguing. We'll also be talking about...
Is the public invited?
The public is invited, and we have actually already engaged the public. Just before we came here, we have been engaging the public in Entebbe. We have been having a clean-up exercise, and we had a public dialogue. It was actually streamed live, and we're engaging the public. They were giving their views. Since Monday, we had celebrations all over the country in 5 regions where the public was engaged. But specifically, we have put together 2 days where the public is invited. On the 21st, that is Thursday, and 22nd, Friday, we call them open days, where the public is invited to come and interface with us. And most important, as part of that day, we have put aside 1 day, which is question time. Our ministers will be there, our permanent secretary, our directors, commissioners, and heads of agencies to take questions from the public, and we would want the public to come and ask the hard questions.
Good, and I'm already preempting the hard questions. So Florance, the monster of climate change, you know, it's very demonstrably hard to deny that we have a serious reversal of our climate comfort that we've been having as a heritage. And just to relate to the viewer, of course, you realize that the month of March to May, which used to be a very predictable part or period of water, rather of rain, has suddenly shifted. It's really apparently not reliable. In March, we have had very little rain, and you have the prediction of the warming of the climate within the the atmosphere within the next 10, 15 years to about 2 degrees Celsius. So what is the Ministry of the government generally doing to curtail, to be able to deal with this particular monster of climate change, the strategic efforts that are being undertaken, and of course in making sure that the resources we have are properly dealt with?
Okay, thank you very much. The Ministry of Water and Environment, first of all, has a department in charge of climate change, whose responsibility is actually to coordinate all the activities linked to climate change in the whole government. But as a technical ministry, which is spearheading this, we have a number of initiatives that we have done. First of all, with the climate change issue that we have now, we need to take in certain mitigation or adaptation strategies. But in order to be
mitigation means
reduction of activities that enhances climate change or increase in temperature. And adaptation is trying to find a strategy of living with it and having more resilience to what is going to happen. But at the same time, we have to guide the activities of government. We have now a national climate change policy and a strategy and plan of action, we also have what is called nationally determined contribution, which are activities that we as Uganda and a member of the United Nations have committed to do in order to combat the impact of climate change, but also address issues like the production of greenhouse gases that enhances temperature rise. However, from the experts of climate change, the climate change is with us now. And therefore, we must have both strategies to mitigate any further human activities that doesn't conform to what is required, but at the same time, find a mechanism to become more resilient. So as a ministry, we are looking at ensuring that all our infrastructures are climate proof. And as I told you, one of the issues that we are having is deforestation. So we are embarking on afforestation, and we are sensitizing people and giving out seedlings so that people are able to plant more trees and have the forest cover. Because as I talk now, the forest cover has reduced to 9%. So and
in the whole country?
In the whole country. And then the wetlands cover has also reduced to about 8.4% as of 2017-2018. Now that puts that as a very critical condition.
But don't you think actually that is an indictment against government, that you have NFA, you have NEMA, you have the ministry, but the reduction?
Yes, as I've told you, this is a collective responsibility with the environment, because the people who are actually doing this are people within the population. We need to create awareness, we need to empower them, and we need them to understand, have the knowledge and skills to appreciate that the activities that they are doing is what is impacting on this. And as you have said, there is now extreme events which are happening. There is seasonal variation. It's now not easy to predict because there are so many changes. There are floods, there are droughts. So as Minister of Water and Environment, we are coming out with the valley dams and valley tanks. We are trying to ensure that there is irrigation to supplement the rains that are happening. But you see, these are new areas, especially irrigation. So, and we need now to create awareness. When you come to the Uganda Water Environment Week, we are going to train on how you can do small-scale irrigation, micro-irrigation using solar-powered systems. Innovative approaches now need to come in place. We need to enhance water use efficiency in all activities that we are doing. We need to reduce pollution of the water resources so that we can do more with less that we have. So there are so many strategies, and these are guided by the policies and the strategies that we are developing. As you are aware, the National Environment Act has just been revised and enacted, actually, the new one. And in that one, we have incorporated the issues of climate change, which was not in the old one. We are now reviewing the National Water Act and the National Water Policy to take in the proactive actions that we must be able to take at all levels to combat the challenge that we have, but also create awareness and make sure that we train people and provide technical assistance to people in how best they can use the environment and how best they can benefit sustainably from the resources that we have. Wow. So these are some of the things that we are doing.
Yes. The first time I've heard the term making the environment climate proof.
Yes.
Dr. Calist, I'm in class. So we just to appreciate the work, about just 2 minutes, of who does what in this whole arena. Just the stakeholders involved here. I think for me what I highlighted was, of course, the Ministry of Water and Environment Directorate structure, which has 3 directorates and different particular departments. Just help people understand the diversity of agencies and partners involved in this.
Thank you very much, Baldwins. The Ministry of Water and Environment is the government agency responsible for all water and environment issues in the country. It is structured according to directorates and agencies. We have a directorate in charge of all the water resources of Uganda. Even when the water is on your land, the land is yours, but the water is government. So we have a directorate of Water Resources Management, which manages all the water resources of the country. We have a directorate of developing this water and making it available to people and for other uses. We call it Directorate of Water Development. Then we have a Directorate of Environment Affairs that manages the forests, the wetlands, and the general environment. But we also have 4 agencies. We have NEMA, National Environment Management Authority, which is responsible for all environmental management issues in the country. We have National Water and Sewage Corporation, which is providing water in urban areas. We have National Forest Authority looking at national forest reserves. Then we have Uganda National Meteorological Authority looking at wetlands. But the ministry doesn't operate
weather, meteorological.
Meteorological, yes, meteorological issues. Then we, at the national level, that's the setup, but we do operate at the regional level. We have created regional offices. We have now 6 regional offices where we have our staff. If you went there, you might think the Ministry of Water and Environment has actually located. But we want to reach closer to where the people are. And when we go there, then we work with the local governments, we work with the community groups, the water users and all that. And everybody at that level is a stakeholder. We engage the various people. From the water resources part, we are creating structures, stakeholder connection structures called catchment management organizations. So in there, we involve the private sector, the civil society, the cultural institution, the religious institutions, and everybody. So ideally, although the Ministry of Water and Environment is in charge, but we work with various other agencies to ensure that we deliver on our services. And that's why for the Water and Environment Week, we have invited everybody, including the media. So please come and join us and contribute.
We will.
To ensuring that we have provision of water and environment services.
NTV shall be there for sure. So thanks. Let me go for a break, and Dr. Florance, come back. I need you to talk about how you're serving the vulnerable communities themselves, and definitely the future of water itself, and the cost of pursuing this aspiration for having universal access to water, and of course having the water resources properly conserved. Thanks, our viewers, for keeping with us. Let's go for a break and wrap up when we come back. And a great evening. Karagaba Baldwins again is my name. We're coming to you live from the Campus International Conference Center, discussing water and water resources management in Uganda, with the entire scope, of course, of all the stakeholders that deal with this particular sector. And still on that question, J. Mapeo Jafar Innocent says that first of all, the government needs to build the economic, the economic capacity of its citizens as households at household level in order to divert them from venturing into harmful but beneficial environment, natural activities, timber business, etc., into other economic activities like agribusiness, since agriculture is a necessity to life. That's a very brilliant contribution, I guess. Then NTV Uganda, Ahumuza says, let me first disagree with some people who mix politics with important discussions. Okay, thanks for helping. Lastly, Nyeko Francis says that we remove, no, this is a political statement. Jack says compulsory tree planting, also electrification of rural areas, increasing taxes on charcoal. Done deal. So, Dr. Calist, you can hear the actually, let me first just get Dr. Florance to comment on this, especially or if you want to comment on any of those comments made, it's okay. You have vulnerable communities, the poor people, you have the disabled people, and in your report, in the report of 2017-2018, there's a statement there showing that service areas to vulnerable towns and of course to places in urban areas. To vulnerable towns, it's 38% and 83% in urban areas, run of course by National Water and Sewage Corporation. So the strategies you're using to help also incorporate the poor, the vulnerable, the disabled, those people that would not normally fit into the grander plan of the general strategy of ensuring that they access clean water.
Okay, thank you very much. As a ministry, we have a special consideration under the PROPUA arrangement. especially in the urban centers and the areas that are surrounding, where we have, instead of having connections direct to the homes, we try as much as possible to bring standpipes closer to the community, where it is run by one of the community members at a certain specific price or cost, I think cost, so that the poor are able to access clean and safe water. The water must be clean and safe, not only clean. So this is in appreciation of the fact that not everybody can be able to get water into their houses and be able to pay. But we also know that there is a minimum amount of water that a person must have every day. And that is why we have taken in those standpipes closer to the community, so that they are able to get water in containers, 20-liter jerrycans at a lower cost, so that they are able to access this free and this safe and clean water, and be able to be healthy, so that they become productive and contribute to the country's development.
Okay. So
this is one of the strategies that we have done. In the villages, so far, by far, where there is point source water, water is not charged. But once we begin to pipe the water, we need to recover the costs of that piping. So the amount of money that is charged is just to recover the cost, so that when we extend water to you and we recover that cost, we shall be able to extend the water to Calist the next time. And in that way, we should be able to have equitable access, which is very important.
But just like in 30 seconds, yes. The person would ask that if government comes and they levy me, they actually tax me, and one of the excuses or justifications for taxation is that you need to supply water, and of course they give you about 1 trillion Uganda shillings to do that. Why would you charge me money for delivering the water that you're saying is actually delivered to me through taxation?
Actually, we want to go back to the policy of government. From 1992, when we came out with the National Water Action Plan, and then the National Water Policy, and then which fed into the Constitution, we adopted the international principles, which one of them says that if we want to regulate and use sustainably the amount of water we have, we must look at water to have economic value, much as it is a social,
freely, yeah.
Yes.
If it's given freely, it ceases to be. So.
Yes, and that would become a motivation for people to use this water also carefully. So we are not charging to get profit. As I've told you, we are charging to recover the cost so that we can extend. The amount of money actually we have is not adequate. That's why we are not 100% covering the supplies. You read it is 70%. It's because the amount of money that we have is not adequate to provide this service, and yet everybody must have safe and clean water. Okay,
you're done. Yes. Yes. Pretty well answered. Dr. Calist, the cost of this water, just help us to understand. Of course, you have several challenges, and you have financial and other resources limitations. There have been some claims of corruption. I cannot substantiate, and I don't want to bring them here. Yeah. But what is the cost of pursuing this aspiration of bringing water to all, water and good sanitation to all?
Well, thank you very much. Maybe before I actually talk about the cost, I just want to get the viewers to understand that when we talk about water and sanitation for all, we are not talking about just water for drinking. I would want us to appreciate that we need water in various forms. You can have water for drinking, but if you don't have water for agriculture, then you have not provided water for all. So we are talking about water for all various uses. Water for energy. If you look at the energy production in Uganda, most of our energy is hydropower. It's actually bringing water to run turbines. So we want to provide water actually to run turbines. Right now, Uganda is going into irrigation. Irrigation is about bringing water to crops, nothing else. Again, we are talking about water, provision of water for irrigation. Right now, Uganda is going into oil production. the amount of oil we are going to be getting from underground, we need the same amount of water to inject in the ground to ensure that we get the oil start flowing.
Oil production requires water.
Yes, we are not going to get oil out of the ground if you don't put water underground. The amount of oil you are going to get out, you need the same amount of water to inject in the ground so that the pressure is maintained and the water comes out. Again, when we talk about provision of water for all, we are again talking about water for oil, water for hydropower, water for drinking, water for agriculture, water for mixing sand and cement, water for making bricks, and that's what we are talking about. We don't just want to look at water for drinking because we don't just develop through drinking water. We want to develop in many ways. Again, we need water for fisheries. Fish doesn't live on land, it lives on water. If the water is not available, the fish will die. If the quality of water is poor, the fish will die. So our mission is to look at water broadly and ensure that water is available to support all these different uses. And again, that's why we are putting all of this into the framework of SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, that if Uganda is going to achieve a goal of good health, if you don't look at water and sanitation, then you will not achieve it. 80% of the disease burden is actually related to water and sanitation. So if you address issues of water and sanitation, then you actually solve the disease burden. Many people will not go to hospitals, then you save the money. So I really would want the viewers to understand that when we talk about water, we are talking about water in that broad sense. And next week, we want to get Ugandans to discuss how do we deliver water for all. And then what is the cost? Of course, we can talk about the cost.
Water for all is implying not only water for all people, but for all uses.
All uses. All uses. And so, for example, you get the needs from means of energy to supply water for energy, for oil, agriculture for that. So next week, actually, we'll have a session which is going to be discussing the financing. And we don't just want to discuss financing of water for drinking. We want to say, how do you finance water availability for hydropower? So the people will be part of that. So I can say that the cost of pursuing this aspiration needs to be worked out by all of us. And once we work it out, then the country will know this is what we need for Uganda to achieve the SDGs. And this dialogue is being coordinated now by the Office of the Prime Minister. Different agencies are coming in, and probably by the end of this year, we'll be able to tell Ugandans that we need so much to deliver water for all of these different uses. But if, for example, you look at the water supply and sanitation, or water resources management, environment management, one needs to understand that you need costs, for example, for treating the water, for pumping the water, for delivering the water, for protecting areas where the water is coming from. Again, when you put all of that together, then you will be able to know whether you have enough. And right now, that's why our coverage has not been increasing. It's not that we are not doing enough. It's just that the cost of ensuring that that water is maintained and providing it to Uganda, and the population of Uganda is growing at a very high rate.
Over 43 million now.
So the water actually we deliver is enough to meet the new Ugandans that are coming on board. About 1 million Ugandans come on board every year. So the money we have is enough to feed, to provide water to the Ugandans coming on board. And if we don't get more money, then obviously the coverage will not grow.
Very well said. And Dr. Florance, just in that particular line, the challenges, definitely I can predict that one of them is underfunding, probably. So what is this sector, the challenges that this sector is facing that you need to address, especially in the highlight of this particular week that is coming, just briefly as we can.
Okay,
and,
thank you very much.
And remind people about the week.
The challenge, of course, from the sector is that we are handling a resource where everybody is a stakeholder, and the demand for the water and the environment resources are for all of us, all the 43 million, and every year we are increasing, and yet the resources are not increasing. Ideally, the resource itself is actually deteriorating as we increase pollution into the environment. Another challenge is actually inadequate awareness among our people. I think we need to continue. That's why we came out with Uganda Water and Environment. Every year we now need to increase awareness and share knowledge so that we can cause change in the mindset and in the appreciation of Ugandans on water and environment, and understand the interlinkages between water and environment and the life that we live and we want to live. Other challenges, of course, is financing, because all the time the demand is increasing. And as we have said, just as you have said about the amount of money paid, we are most likely to continue increasing the amount of money paid for water served, because pollution is increasing. Now, as pollution increases, you need much more chemicals to treat the water to the required drinking water quality. And somebody, somewhere, must pay for that money. So, as we try to talk about protection of environment, and if all of us as Ugandans can protect the environment, we should be able to have a very healthy water body, healthy environment with reduced cost of production, and therefore even the water bills will go down. But as long as we continue the way we are, the deteriorating water quality will demand expensive ways of water treatment.
Yeah, and in that line, just to make sure that people help to get to the mountain of this challenge, invite them to the week.
Thank you very much. Viewers, I would like to take this opportunity to invite you to the Uganda Water and Environment Week. Your participation is very important. This is the second time we hold the Uganda Water and Environment Week to create awareness and education, share knowledge, innovations on the water environment problems. We shall be glad if you came, because this time the event will be honored, and we shall be having His Excellency the President of Uganda to officiate over the event. And that already signifies the high level appreciation of the magnitude of the challenge that we have on water and environment. But I'm very optimistic that if all Ugandans come to understand and appreciate the value of water and environment, we together should be able to protect and utilize this water environment for ourselves, but for the future generation as well to come.
Okay, when and where?
The Water Environment Week will start on 18th to 22nd of March 2019 in Entebbe. Entebbe Water Resources Institute is also another new institute that we have put there to enable us carry out problem-solving research, training of stakeholders, outreach and dialogue. It is just next to Imperial Resort Beach in Entebbe.
Okay, thank you indeed. Florance Grace Adongo, the Director of Water Resources Management, Ministry of Water and Environment. Dr. Calist Tindimugaya, the Commissioner of Water Resources Planning and Regulations, Ministry of Water and Environment. Very excellent discussion. You've been profoundly prolific, and I believe it's a great contribution to the enhancement of this sector. Hoping to see you again. This has not been the first time. Thanks our viewers for sharing with us this particular time in our broadcast, and please continue doing so. We have the most brilliant programming here in Uganda, and we move our world. God bless and have a great evening.